Okay. Hello, everyone. Victoria and I are here.
Hello.
Christy is able to make it today with internet struggles. So it's just us two on camera, but Christy will be here in the comments. So that'll be good. Let's see. This one had a lot to talk about.
Yes, we got
My
a lot
goodness.
more plot action.
Everything kind of tied together. Hey, Tiffany.
Yay, Tiffany's here. Hello, Christy.
Yeah. Hi, Christy. So yeah, I feel like everything kind of was slow and then it just like bam, all tied up at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it was very fast paced.
Yes, a lot of tragedy as well.
Oh goodness, I started almost crying and I was like, this is not what I wanted to do, but I guess I signed up for it when I wanted to read this book. So
Yeah,
yes, we're
it's
sad
okay.
you're not here too. I think there's an echo, but I can't figure out if that's from me.
It might. I don't hear it, so it might be me.
Okay,
I don't know what would be echoing.
that's okay. Does anyone else hear an echo? Tiffany or Christy? Yeah.
Yes, poor Eponine.
Oh goodness.
She's a tragic figure, the main tragic figure, I feel, in this
There were
section.
so many deaths in this one, and it was like heartbreaking. Okay, good. Sounds fine.
Oh, it sounds fine. Okay, good. Yeah, sorry, Naomi, I don't know what that is.
Okay, then maybe it was just something I was hearing. It's good then. uh, but yeah, this is where kind of like we were all getting attached slowly to these characters, and then Hugo's like, "Here's everyone going to die."
Yeah. Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, Eponine, I feel like you can kinda see Eponine, like, you can see that coming because she's a Thénardier, like, who, like, is the only Thénardier that, like, is trying one of the only Thénardiers that actually you can tell she has character. So, of course she's gonna be tragic. Because she's a
yeah,
Thénardier.
yeah, but the Tenardies are interesting. I really liked Garbash in this section. He was
Yeah.
such an interesting character as well.
Mhm.
He was so fascinating.
He plays a
But
big
then,
role.
yeah, I also was like, Mabouf, he was such a heartbreaking moment for me, such a minor character, but man, like when he went, I was like, no, I need to reread that to make sure I didn't like misunderstand what just happened because I was
Mhm.
sad.
Yeah, and he's a
Yeah.
character that I don't think he's in the musical version. So I was like, I don't remember him in like the music in Les Mis
Yeah.
musical. I don't know if anyone can correct me on that, but I don't remember him being a character in it.
I think Hugo just does such a good job with all these characters. Like, yes, there's so many pages, but at the same time, you really get to know these characters where they're like, even with him and his book collecting, and then when he slowly started selling those books, that was like heart wrenching. And then at the very end of his life, I was like, ugh. And he's so small of a character. He's not big on the plot, but you know, it was a big impact for me, even though it's so minor in the grand scheme of the whole book.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah, I guess yeah, Hugo does do a good job um of bringing those little pieces and making you feel for them even if they're in the story for just a little blip. He knows
yeah,
how to tug
Tiffany.
on the heartstrings.
Yeah. And he made you feel like that person was real. So when you had to sell off his books, you knew it was an actual sacrifice.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then when they took his coat, was it? I can't remember right now. I read it last night, that section, and made that their flag.
Mhm.
And that was such an emotional moment for me too. Yeah.
Mhm.
But no, this section had a lot to cover. So do we want to start the beginning? Because so much to
Yeah,
do.
maybe that's the best way to just go through kinda chapter by chapter.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
So we start with history, which
Does
actually
anyone want to cover history?
I didn't mind having that just because um I need to learn more about French history, but that section also had an agenda, right? It wasn't like true history. It was also Hugo
Mhm.
expressing his own beliefs, which is interesting.
Yeah.
His whole his whole mentality of revolutions and like the the role that revolutions play in government and society, um and his kind of idealism. But I don't mind the history sections because it helps me learn a little bit more, but you have to take Hugo's history with a grain of salt because he doesn't
Absolutely.
always he's not like he's not like true history. He puts his own opinions in there.
Hello.
Hello,
Yeah, no, Hugo's history is definitely selective history, but I do enjoy learning about the history for sure. Um, but I did blitz through it because I also was like, this is not important to plot. So if I want to get to plot, I need to just get through this.
Mhm.
So yeah, Christy found the history interesting as well.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
Yeah,
Um, just it is good to know like what our characters what their background would have been, like their motivations. I guess it helps to
yeah.
understand the characters' motivations when you know why is this revolution happening.
I think, yeah, it also helped to develop where we were going with the French Revolution and how the ABC started, that kind of mentality going into this big section. At the time, it kind of felt like, oh, we're going into another, side quest. But as we went into it, it was like, this is actually showing a big part of what's going on. So
Mhm.
it did pay off, at least in this section, where sometimes it has felt like it doesn't pay off.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I thought this was actually a useful setup, to go forward and understand why the characters were even doing this in the first place. In
Yeah.
the ABC.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
But
Oh, so
Christy said
Christy's
she
gonna share a
was
lot of history with us. Oh boy, I guess we'll get a history lesson from Christy now. We'll see. Yes. So any thoughts Christy has, we will try to put up on the screen for you guys. I'm gonna get to the table of contents because there were so many. Like I know there are 15 books, which I was like, there's so many in this section,
it was a big section.
which was great. Funny note, Tiffany. I was looking up summaries for especially the slang bit because I wanted to know what was so important about it. Nothing. Nothing. Spark Notes says that Hugo talks about slang, and Gravesaver says that a lot of versions don't even include the slang section. So, yeah, you could have just skipped it.
I actually did skip it. So, I'm glad to hear that because I did skip it. I was like, I don't see anything relevant for a while.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad thing to do.
And I also I kind of procrastinated my reading and I had already seen you guys talking about like, the slang section, so I was like, "Okay, I won't read that part." Y'all gave me a heads up.
I love it when people on Discord are like, "Oh goodness, this section's hard." I'm like, "Okay, turn it up to 2.3 speed and just blitz." Yeah, exactly. It was kind of irrelevant to us, but at the same time, it was like it's actually cut out of many volumes or versions. So it's like that's not surprising based on what we read, or at least my version, my opinion of what we read.
Hi,
Maybe other
Tammy.
people will disagree.
No, I have no regrets.
Yes. Some friends of mine have asked if they should read Lemez, and I'm like, yes, but you can skip Waterloo, you can skip these sections, and I'm like, you can skip slang, you can skip.
And I wouldn't usually say that about a book, but I think with Les Mis, yeah, it's okay to skip some things.
Yeah. Yes. So for about Eponine, I feel like Eponine was such a strong character in this section. She
I love it.
really became so complex.
She is. She is one of the more complex female characters in Les Mis, and we always like to see that. But Eponina is just ugh, like it's sad. She's so sad. She's a sad character.
Yeah.
It's a love triangle trope as well. Which I wonder if love triangles were a commonly written thing in Hugo's day. I haven't looked into that, but I'm curious. But um it is a love triangle trope, but it's a very tragic love triangle because
Yeah.
Eponine is I don't know. Eponine is the one you root for, and obviously she doesn't win. She doesn't have a good happy ending. But
She doesn't win in any regard.
no, she has a tragic upbringing as well. She comes from an awful family, and yeah, you just feel for her as like a Thenardier who actually wants to do good and like actually like you see her stand up for herself and stand up for others.
Mhm.
Um and she even stands up to her father who is gross, and she has a backbone. So it does make me it made me wonder as well, like it's not like she was brought up in this family and then has all their same values. Like Hugo's kind of showing like a few of these kids, like Gavroche. Well, he didn't really grow up in the house, but like Eponine, grew up with this terrible family, but she still has her own. I don't know. She has her own opinions about things, and it's not like just like kind of like the nature versus nurture thing. Like even though
Yeah.
she grew up in this terrible household, she didn't adopt their beliefs. So I don't know if Hugo's saying something there too. Like you don't have to follow, like your background.
A very accurate description. He's very gross. He doesn't even recognize his own children, fully, like in any regard. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think she's just so complex because when she starts out, we think, oh, she's just like a thief or just trying to con people. And then as we progress, I don't know, she's just so different. I'm trying to figure out how to like word it, but suddenly she has a heart or she's showing that. And it's like, is that because she's in love with Marius that she's doing things for him? But at the same time, is that why she's suddenly trying to take care of Cosette and her father because Cosette is attached to Marius's well-being? Um, I don't know. It's all of these levels to her that we don't see in the first few times of her interactions.
Mhm. Well, she has no reason to help Cosette or like Cosette, and she
No.
and she and she does anyways, even though it's not in her own interest. So I think there too we see that she has actual moral character, um, despite being a Thenardier, which makes her interesting.
Yeah. And also, I was going to say that we don't know about their second daughter at all. We hear about their two youngest sons
Yeah.
who were adopted out for a few minutes, right? And then they're gone. We don't know what happened to them. But the real focus is on their two middle children, essentially.
Hmm.
Yeah. Christy has some quotes about the history section.
Oh,
So, yeah, some interesting stuff there. It was an interesting section for sure. Um, but I didn't take notes or anything like Christy did. This is definitely a section though. Yeah. And then the Thenardiers, yeah, they have compassion and care more about money or their own gain. Or not the other two. The Thenardier children. Yeah.
mhm.
And I think that's so interesting that they were raised very differently too, Garache and Eponine, because they have one was raised in the home, one was kicked out essentially, or raised without any kind of love. So even then, very different, polarizing experiences from the same household.
Mhm.
But yet they both have realized maybe how wrong it is. Is that what Hugo's trying to say? I don't know because Hugo says a
Yeah.
lot.
I
with
think
very little or with too many words sometimes.
we see examples of like the next generation doing better than the old
Yeah,
generation. That is,
we
I
do.
feel like, a theme, like with Marius and his grandfather. I think we see Marius as someone who's trying to be more enlightened, and his grandfather is very much um like he lives in a harsh world. He lives in a much more cruel world. He's not compassionate for others. Um and Marius does have more of that moral compass. So I think it's maybe another example of the generations and how the sins of the father don't have to continue on to the son or daughter. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
absolutely. Yeah. And it's true that Eponine is very aware of her brother and wanting to take care of him, but he probably doesn't recognize her or know her as it's probably been so long since he's seen
Oh
her.
yeah, I don't know if he knows like
She
how they're.
also was not dressed as a girl at that point.
Uh huh.
So that might have, she confused everyone. She tricked everyone at that point. So who knows? Yeah. Hi, Kaylee.
Welcome.
hmm Yeah. Hugo likes to break hearts. Yeah,
Yes.
very
I know
true.
all this it does make me afraid to read Hunchback.
I've read that before. I didn't like it, but I read a kid's abridged version, so I would probably need to read the big adult version, which makes me scared too after this. For this reason.
Yeah. I need to be in the right mood for Hugo.
Yeah.
Um,
Ooh.
okay, so let's see what happens next. What
I
happened
know
next?
a lot happened, a lot of plot. I feel
Mhm.
like so often in this book we've had like a lot of character, and then a little plot, and now it's like a bunch of plot.
Mhm. Well, we have
So,
Cosette and Valjean
yeah.
living a very sequestered life. Um,
hmm
and then, Cosette kind of um butting against that and being like, "Hey, I'm a young lady and I need to go out in the world, and there's this cute boy over there." And then Jean Valjean's like, "No, we must live alone forever, just with us, and then we can be safe."
Hi,
Um,
Krista. Drive safe, please.
so-
Anyways, yes, because that is definitely fighting the structural setup that her father has set up for her, or the
Mhm.
bounds that he set her in.
So I guess there's another example of the generations, you
hmm
know, butting heads.
Yeah, it's a lot about this kind of generational conflict, I think. There's so many things that are discussed in this book. Honestly, I feel like it's a great book, though. I understand why people love it. Yeah. But I also think it's interesting how Eponine finds the house where she's like trying to scout it out for a robbery. And that's where she's like, oh, there's Cosette. Now I'll go tell Marius.
Mhm.
Like, it's just because she's actually doing something, going to be doing something illegal. But
Mhm.
that's where she actually finds him.
Yeah.
Oh, Haley is something controversial.
He's
She does not like
lazy.
Marius. I can understand that. I can understand that. He doesn't do much, like, or at least that's what it looks like on the page. So I can understand why you see that way. I also think that he's a bit of a dreamer and he just doesn't have any practical skills. I'm a very practical person, so I like practicality.
Well, I also I
Like,
tend to agree as well. I don't think Marius is an awesome character, but well, and he also, I don't like how stalkery he is. He's a
yeah.
little bit stalkery.
I was thinking that as I was reading, I was like, this would be a stalker and like restraining order situation for
Yeah,
me nowadays.
he's a little bit possessive of a girl that he has never actually spoken to for a long time in the book.
Yeah. But
But
he does have great values. I do agree with that.
mhm.
Yeah. And then, yeah, Tiffany, like with backtracking, Hugo does a great job of backtracking. I like how we get to see both sides of the coin with that. So we get to see Marius with Eponine, and then later we get to see Cosette with Valjean before. So
Mhm.
that was interesting. Yeah. No, I thought it was a great way to start that section, and also to see the prison escape. That was interesting. I
Yeah,
liked how that kind of revealed the true character of a lot of people. Like Sarnardier, like we already knew that, but at the same time, I feel like that showed even more how he doesn't even recognize his own son, like the one who helped him get out. Um, but then that even shows Garbash, who like his father who abandoned him, he still helped him.
yeah. Well, yeah, because he actually is, a decent human. And Thenardier, you see, like, it doesn't matter what nice things or good things anyone else does for him. He's like too far gone. He's still gonna be selfish and greedy to his core.
Mhm.
He's not gonna appreciate people who help him. He's always gonna be looking for gain. So he's just the character, he's the mustache twirling villain who can't, he can't be helped. he's just
No,
he's just too far gone.
yeah,
Even
absolutely.
when his own offspring saves him.
Yeah, and he doesn't even recognize. He's like, "Oh, that might have been my son. Who cares?" And he just walks off.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not
yeah,
really like you can't really redeem that character. He's not
yeah.
supposed to be redeemed.
He just shows how far gone some people are in Hugo's mind, and I think sometimes that is true. You can't save everyone, and some people are just irredeemable. You can try and try and try, but I think in some cases it's just too late.
Yeah,
So
certainly in that character and what he
yeah,
represents. Um, I forgot. I was gonna say something. It'll come back. It'll come back eventually.
okay. Uh, yes. Tiffany has a quote about Mary or thing about Marius. Yeah, he's a bit obsessive, but it is nice to know that she felt the same way because Hugo
Yeah.
does talk about that where she did feel that way. However,
Right.
it was not stated before, so I didn't like that before.
Yeah. Yeah, before we know, like, oh, okay, they're both in love or whatever. Before we know that, it's just like, Marius, you need to calm down.
Yeah, it was like, this girl doesn't even, might not even know you exist. But yeah, stalking her house in the middle of the night and terrifying her might be a little bit much. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, some people just are that way and they will not change. So be interesting. So
Yeah, he's got no shades of gray, Tiffany.
no, super
He's just
evil,
mwahaha.
great villain. Christy wants to share another quote. Oh, yeah. When it's right, it's triumphs. When it has no need to be violent. When the right is just and the true, the pure. Goodness, long quotes, Christy. That was a good section, though. I will agree that. Yes, the next chapter was slang, which we can skip unless people want to talk about why people use the term cops versus policemen. We we can skip that.
Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Yes. Oh, and then what was chapter 8? It says entitled Enchantments and Desolations. I don't remember what that one was about.
Um,
Yes, Christy has great quotes. She is such a like a note taker, and I'm like not. I just listen. Yeah, peculiarities of the right is always beautiful and very pure. Yep, black and white.
yes, definitely romanticism as well. This book is
Mhm.
certainly dripping with romanticism in many ways.
Yeah. Oh, Krista didn't hate the slang tangent.
All right, a vote for slang.
One vote for slang, or one vote not against slang, shall we say? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very few characters in this book are actually gray characters, but I think Eponine is one of them in some regards. Like she comes out being a little more on the white, like angelic side, but she starts off a little more
That's true.
like she
I
comes
really
through
like,
that.
yeah, I think that's why we like her.
Yeah,
She has more complexity. She kind of
yeah,
walks
absolutely.
she walks that line. She lives a life of crime because it's for her it's a life that, she's always known. and out of necessity. But she also, you can tell, she,
Mhm.
given the chance, she doesn't want to live that life.
Mhm. And even when we first met her, I remember the book saying something like, "Oh, they lost the papers, so they're gonna get beaten tonight or something." Like, and so that would be the case of they're being forced to pawn people into giving them money, and that's not something she wants to do, but she's being forced into it. So
Mm.
in that regard, yeah, she doesn't want to, but it's a required lifestyle by her parents who are supporting her.
Mhm.
But as soon as she gets the chance, she's actually fighting against them.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Silly, innocent, and self-involved.
Yeah, and
They're young, they're
particularly deep.
immature.
Yeah, it's not particularly deep, or it's just like love at first sight kind of romance, you know? It's just like, we are meant to be together.
Yeah, it's love at first look,
Yes.
really. Yeah. Well, the next one was, I think, when they were being attacked at the house, and then Eponine told them to move. Was that it? And
Sorry,
Marius was
sorry, I was
visiting at night?
reading.
I think that was the next time that Marius was visiting at night all the time. Like, and just like they were holding hands and like he etched the address into the wall and stuff.
Mhm.
Because, yeah, I think this is where the next thing that happened occurred. Um, yeah, because then she led Marius, even though she led Marius to Cosette, she didn't want them together. So she struggles a lot as a character.
Mhm. Inward struggle for sure, which is
Hmm.
why we like her.
And
'Cause she's
double motives.
a little
It's like
bit more
if
of a
you can't
flesh
have you, or if I can't have you, no one will. But I
Mhm.
also don't want you to be unhappy with Cosette dying.
Yeah. Eponine's a more fleshed out female character in the book, which we like.
I like that, especially in a male written classic, because that's not always what we get when it comes to this old, like not this old, but like modern classics. We can get that, but
Uh-huh.
not so often in like 1800s classics.
Yeah.
So
Well, even Cosette, I
sometimes,
mean, in my opinion, I don't think Cosette's particularly um like an interesting character. I mean, she has a tragic backstory and she is an impetus for Jean Valjean, like taking care of someone, um, and like someone depending on Jean Valjean. But like Cosette herself, I don't find to be a particularly well written female character. Um,
mhm.
that's just my opinion, though. So yeah,
I
like,
think because Eponine's tragic, she's
mhm.
well written, like that complex.
Well, Cosette is kind of tragic too, but she was like saved.
Yeah, because that's almost like a caricature. I think it's like hard to
Fontaine,
remember
I agree.
sometimes. Yeah, I think it's hard to remember sometimes that because that grew up in a nunnery, like she doesn't know anybody or anything socially. So to remember that, like of course she seems a lot younger, but she does seem like a caricature. And Fontaine, she knew the world because she did not grow up so sheltered.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Fontaine, yeah, Fontaine is another, I guess, yeah, she's more tragic. I guess it's the tragic characters that feel that feel more fleshed out.
Everyone who's gonna die feels
Everyone who's
complex.
gonna die feels more real.
Uh well, we're not at the end yet because that could still have that depth, that change, because we're about to go into her having some real struggles, I feel like. I don't
Yeah,
know what's going to happen in the next section,
I might bite my tongue in the next section.
but yeah. Yeah, she seems so sweet and innocent, but I think that's just I don't know. I mean, if you were locked up essentially in a nunnery for so many years, then maybe you would be too. I don't know. But and then like, hiding in your house and only in your garden for so long and walking with your father only, then maybe
Yeah,
that'd be the case.
yeah, and
But
we see her, expressing herself about that too, of like, I don't wanna be a nun forever. I
yeah,
need to go out in the world.
yeah. So I think she is wanting to grow up, but she also doesn't know how to like move out in the world. in certain ways.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's hard as a woman back then. You were dependent. You were dependent on
mhm,
your family's money.
yeah. I think also with Valjean not being married and never having that kind of relationship, he's also kind of stunted in that area. So he doesn't know how to lead Cosette into that area of life, with whether it be courtship or, moving forward with many friends either, because he's always had to hide a part of himself. So he can't even have close friendship either.
That's true. Hmm.
So yeah. Oh, I meant to click this one. Yeah, I am kind of interested to read that one because I didn't love the female character in that book, but like I said, kids version, which is not really kid friendly. That book.
I that's the funny thing about Hunchback is like it's not a very kid friendly story, but they made a Disney movie out of it.
I know. I think it's hilarious. Oh, yes. So then Marius, being dramatic as always, was going to die next. What to do with that? I think he's just so dramatic. I'm always like, oh, Marius, it's not the end of the world. But it's fate. It's true love. So he's going to die because that's going to England.
Yes. Oh yes. That was very dramatic.
Um, but yeah, so then he goes to, go off to war because why not do that? So you can die on the battlefield or die on the revolutionary battlefield. Let's see. Yes, Valjean has hidden himself even away from Cosette. Yeah, that scene was actually really hard with the Chang gang. Um, when they were all like shut down emotionally when it was dark outside, and then they had when the sun came out, then they all were hardened men entirely. That was a very emotional scene for Valjean, but it was like, wow, flashback entirely or PTSD completely for Valjean.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Tiffany, Marius feels so strongly about everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Euphoria or despair. He's
Yes,
never one. He's never in the middle. He's never like, I'm calm. He's
that's
never just calm.
hilarious.
If you asked him how he is, he would never say, I'm fine.
No. No. One cannot simply be fine during the French Revolution.
I think you can't be fine if you're Marius. You're either ecstatic or you're going to die.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah, he has some mood swings. But yeah, no. And then Gavroche calling him to the French Revolution. I thought it was so interesting that he keeps popping up. I'm like, I don't want Gavroche to die. If he dies in the next section, I'm gonna be so sad. Like, I'm kind of bracing myself because if he does die, I'm gonna be like heartbroken. So I need to brace myself for that. But I really hope not. I don't want him to go. I don't.
Well, I won't say we do know it is Les Mis.
I know. I'm like, everyone dies except for Cosmo. And for some people, I'm not gonna say who in
No.
case someone doesn't know. But I know most people die. But uh
Shauna says, "That's my 17-year-old daughter now."
I feel like Marius is constantly in a teenage girl state of emotion.
I don't know how old he's supposed to be in the book, but I
He's
don't
like
know.
25 or
He might
something.
be 17. Is
Oh
he
my goodness.
older? He might be older. No, yeah, he is older. He is older.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically maybe how it is.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very sad where we're going into now. Like the last section of this thing I was listening to last night, and I was like, I can't finish this. I don't want to read anymore because I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to. hear what
Yeah.
happened next?
It's
Yes. So he's not old enough, but I don't know what the age of getting married without your parents' or guardian's permission is in that time era. So if anyone knows.
I thought he was in his 20s.
Yeah, I thought so too. But does he have to be like have enough money to marry on his own? Is that kind of the rule too, or something?
Maybe something with inheritance as well. I don't know. That is beyond my expertise.
Okay. So, all right. So he has to be 25.
Okay. Oh, wow. Interesting.
So he's still young, but man, the drama.
Yeah. It's okay. I was dramatic when I was 20.
I mean, I feel like who wasn't?
Uh, um, so you wanted to talk about Mabuff, Naomi?
Oh, yes, I did. He's so sad.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it's a matter of respect. Like also asking for permission at that time and era, like for marriage.
Ah,
But
yes.
if he
Okay.
literally could not marry, I think it's different than asking and then just like running away and getting married. So
Mhm.
definitely a matter of asking for permission or blessing. Like those are two different things. If he was over 25, it would be blessing as opposed to permission, probably.
Mhm. That makes sense.
The hormones. Yeah, but no. Mabuff. He was so emotional for me. I don't know why. I just feel like I connected to him so much. All those little scenes just like kind of popped up and then they would go away again. But he just was such a constant for the little bits.
Uh-huh. And he's a tragic casualty of war.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. He's not particularly, he's not a soldier. He's just a sad casualty.
Yeah. And it's not like he's a young man who's choosing to go off and fight, the battle of his life. It's like he's an old man who's starving at home and he can't afford a loaf of bread any like a single day of the week. And he can't afford rent anymore. And that's like it's just so tragic because he was successful and it just shows the tragedy of the book. That's why it was so emotional for me. And then he just decides to go off and he's like, I'm not going home, I'm gonna go fight. And then suddenly he's gone.
Mhm.
But because he wants to do one more thing for this revolution and go get that flag back.
Mhm.
Yeah. All of the emotions for him. Yeah. He's such a minor character, but at the same time, he was so prominent in that. I don't know, in that field for me.
Mhm. He
But
loves
yeah.
books and plants, yes.
Yeah.
We love people who like books and plants.
Yes. Christy has another quote. The moral hideous or the hideous moral fact with the moral idea of the 19th. Yeah.
Mhm. Yes, that's definitely a huge theme.
Yeah.
Old school versus new school.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think he probably, yeah, I wonder how much he knew what was going on, but at the same time, he probably was like, I'm just tired of living this horrible existence of not knowing what to do next.
And we
That's what I got
compare
out of it.
I mean, another thing I was curious of everyone's perspective on was, so we have our tragic barely making it characters, and then um we have these prisoners who are like notorious prisoners and they keep escaping Javert, even though Javert, is this like hard-nosed cop who is like super like after everybody, but these prisoners keep escaping and they keep getting away with stuff. Um and like they keep prospering. So we have this like evil group of people that do bad, like they do evil and they keep prospering as well.
Absolutely. And it's
So
because the system's letting them,
mhm,
which like they're able to pay their way out of the prison,
mhm,
which is the problem where the poor people can't. Um, which is, yeah, I feel like one of the big things about Hugo's point in this section, or in that prison section at the very least. Oh, yeah, I felt that. I feel like that's the big part of this too, is where every time the poor or the noble, they keep trying their best and they're doing it honorably, they keep failing, whereas people who rob and steal and murder, they keep succeeding.
mhm.
And so that's also a fight against this kind of action in this book, because he is uplifting those who are suffering because of their right doings. But they also are suffering because of it.
Right. Well, we have the Thénardiers who don't particularly prosper, which is like we have two
Yeah.
examples. We have some prisoners and criminals who are prospering. They keep escaping, and then we have the Thénardiers who are also criminals, but they're not really prospering, I would say.
Well, they're not really prospering at that point, but then he manages to escape and still get back together with a gang of people to still go back and like rob Valjean. So
Mhm.
even though he isn't prospering at that moment, I think there is the possibility of going back and prospering. So yeah, no, Tiffany had that point about the deliberate action to get the flag, even though he might die or he would die.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think he like they also told him go home and he's like, "Nope, I'm going to stay here." And so, yeah, and then he lost his identity. He totally did when he lost all his books.
We relate.
All those things. So, yeah. No, all of these events that are happening around the French Revolution are really interesting because it's like leading up to this big moment of the barricading and then all of the events. And when the drunk revolutionary shot the shopkeeper or owner, the homeowner, and then he got shot in return, I had to stop and was like, what just happened? There's another moment of like murder and bloodshed. And it's just like I understood why, but it's also like, wow, again, we have this. And that's like I feel like a point of this section now is so many people are dying.
Uh-huh. Um, what do we think of Angel Ross?
Yeah. He's a he's an interesting leader, isn't he? I
He also he also does he actually murder someone? Or he's
he's the
going to,
one, isn't he the one that murders the murderer?
yeah. Yeah, he does. He does. That's right.
Um yeah, because it was him, not the Corfac or Corfi, the other one. But yeah, he's interesting. I think he's just so impassioned, but at the same time, he's like they're all in this mindset of we must fight, but they're also just young and just trying to do what they can. But they also are just so young that they don't understand how this might not work right now because they're barricading where they like love to be, but then they also almost die at the exact same moment, and Marius saves them once from like almost being killed by almost blowing up the whole place and like getting the guards or the soldiers away.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of levels there with their lack of planning with Eljon, or how do you say that name? I read that section. Um how did you say it? I don't remember.
Um,
But
I'm I'm not
E's
sure
name.
character.
E's name. He was not as he's not much of a planner, but he is very impassionate. He's very passionate and very intelligent, but he's not a forethinker when it comes to a lot of these details.
Oh, and I'm just saying Angel Ross, even though that's probably wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't speak French, so a lot of these accents or a lot of these names are also like being butchered by me when I think of them on my own without the audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Angel Ross. You don't say the S at the end.
Probably. Yeah, why did he tell Marius that he's in charge after he shows up? Probably because I don't know. That's a good question.
Because he was a lovesick puppy.
Yeah. Okay. The J is probably pronounced as an H. That's interesting.
And Hora. And
Yeah.
Horace.
Okay. Well, we'll go with that. Yeah. I think it was probably because he saved the day. And like I said, he's just not a big planner in advance. They're like, let's barricade the favorite place that we like to go. And that was their plan. They didn't have a plan.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't feel that Hugo is particularly like on that the ABC's side. Do you know what I mean? Like,
No.
I don't think we've really seen Hugo be like, these guys are doing the right thing, even though he's like, a revolution is a natural chain of events, but I don't feel like he's condoning like the violence of the revolution.
Yeah.
We're not really, I feel like he presents them and shows that they're being violent, but he's not like saying this is good.
Yeah, he's showing one group, but he's also not being like, this is the best group
Uh-huh.
or this is the best way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bryce isn't a great strategist, is he? He he just stalks outside of houses. So he's not the greatest at planning things or putting notes under rocks to wherever people can find them.
You can't
He's
be a
not,
you can't be a strategist when you have so many emotions.
he's not a thinker, he's a feeler.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting dynamic of that group because they're like, we're going to fight the group, the power, but yet they're also like kind of doing their own thing. And then at the same time, they're all struggling to
It's
work with
chaotic.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is chaotic. They are clearly just like acting kind of day by day, moment by moment. And it makes you wonder, can they be successful?
Yeah, it's true. So
Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
riots versus
Exactly.
insurgent.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it feels like Hugo's like things need to change, but this is not going to impact change.
Uh-huh.
So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think he's not condoning the violence.
No, he's definitely not. He is hating the violence, but he's also being like, well, what else are they doing?
Right.
So, yeah.
Like, the people will rise up under these circumstances, but
Yeah.
I don't think he wants violent riots and such.
Yeah. I think I remember something about how he said at the very end, it was like all this needless bloodshed or something, like all the bloodshed.
Um,
It's like, yeah, constant bloodshed for no reason. So yeah, war is a natural result of the progress of progress, then the ends justify the means. I don't know, but there was need for change in Hugo's mind. And obviously with what is being shown with the poor being poorer and the rich being richer, and so many people suffering, like, or even the middle class falling lower. Um, and it just shows how so many people were starving every day. It was just
mhm.
clearly things needed to change. So, but I mean, like I've heard recently, things don't change nicely when you write a polite letter. Yeah, like things don't change when you just write a polite letter and say, "Can you please change this?" You actually have to, scream and shout before governments and things actually change, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I think Hugo might acknowledge that as well.
Mhm.
But he definitely is an idealist and has, I think he's like, in an ideal world, this violence is needless, and we can do it
Mhm.
better. I think he's like, there's a better way, but um he's very much acknowledging, like, but of course this is happening. Like, of course there is violence because of X, Y, and Z, but I think in his idealist romanticism mindset, he's like, there should be there's a better way.
Mhm. Yeah. So there were other barricades. It was just that that one is very unsolved, or they're very unorganized. Yeah, with the way that it looks, at least from their way for
Yeah,
seeing things.
I mean, it's not like they had cell phones and could be like, "Hey, how are you guys doing over there?"
Yeah, they don't have little radios and setups.
They didn't have
So
radios.
yeah, yeah, and so many innocent people who were killed, um, from their houses or just everything, and the gunpowder that would go off and just probably kill, people who were walking by or houses that were standing close.
Uh-huh.
Non Needless death.
Yeah, well, the innocents are basically the title of the novel, so we know that Hugo cares about the innocents. He cares about the unfortunates.
Yeah. And it definitely feels like a social commentary, the entire book, where he's like talking about whether it be the poor, whether it be the orphans, whether it be the injustice of the prison system, all these different things. He's like, this is how you're doing things wrong in the world. And
Mhm.
so this is another way he's like, this is how things happened. And this is another way that people suffered.
Yeah.
Like everything is always a commentary, which is always done in a really beautiful way, sad way, but beautiful way.
Yeah, agree, 100%.
Yeah. We're not even into the thick of the battle yet from this section.
I know. Does anyone who does not actually know the end of Les Mis, does anyone have predictions? If you don't know the end already.
And also, if anyone's watching this later, we're going to probably spoil stuff later, like for later coming up. So we might. We'll see.
Oh, you don't
Okay,
know the
Tammy
end
doesn't know the end. We won't spoil anything. Well, also, I haven't read it before, so if I'm spoiling anything unintentionally, it's a guess. I'm only going off the movie.
I'm just curious if we have predictions for anyone wants to throw out there.
Yes, I forgot about that. I wanted to talk about that, how Javert turns into a prisoner. So great.
Of course, yeah. Of course.
Oh goodness, how Garvache figures out that someone isn't right in the group. And he's like, "You're not right. You're someone abnormal." And then they they not strip him, but they figure out, like, they basically check them all out and they're like, "Oh, he's a spy." I loved that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember that from the movie too, though. But that was so great to see that again. And Garvache is like such a great character. I love him. That's why I'm so scared for the next volume because he's just become so prominent in this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I was kind of like, "How did Javert get here?" He just, like, appears. He's like, "Ha."
He's everywhere in this one.
He's in the middle of everything somehow.
Yeah. He would never, like, why is he hiding with all the students in this one barricade? And then he's like, I'm gonna get away with this. He's clearly not a student
Yeah.
with all of these young 20-year-olds.
I know, right? Probably a guy in his 40s.
Well, it said 52, I remember the
Really?
number.
Okay, yeah, he's definitely conspicuous.
I
Okay,
think you finished this book already, Kaylee.
everyone
That
but
was your
Javert
plan.
will comment.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
still laughing at Tiffany's comment. Javert
Yeah.
couldn't not give off that narc vibe. Yeah. Good luck, Javert. Good luck with that.
Oh, man. Yeah. Loved that he, also was tied up so much he couldn't even move a little bit. It was like You've been squeezing Valjean to death, like figuratively, for so long, and now you get to physically feel that. So, you haven't finished it yet, but yes, it's French literature. Great. We'll finish it all together then.
Yes. And then I put this morning, FYI, I have another daily reading schedule for the last part. So if anyone was looking for that, if you want to follow a daily reading schedule, it'll be 20 pages a day to get us to the end of the book. Oh my goodness, I can't believe we're almost to the end.
I know, I was looking at that. It was like, we have so little left. I feel so accomplished. This is my biggest accomplishment of my reading life to date.
Everybody should feel accomplished.
Yeah,
It's no small feat.
no, this is by far the biggest reading accomplishment ever. Yeah. Oh, what else is there to talk about in this? So many things, but does anyone else have anything they'd like to talk about? Oh, Tiffany is not making any guesses, but she has an informed idea. Oh boy. I mean, I have an informed idea too, but I don't want to spoil Tammy. Do you have a guess, Tammy, since you haven't read it yet? Yeah. There were lots of things in the barricade to go like that happened, but mostly it was just death. And then Gavroche with the wagon and singing loudly in the streets while breaking all the street lights.
Didn't we end with a song from him in another section? I feel like this is the second time where
Yes,
a section ended with him singing. That
his
happened
last section did as well,
Yeah.
right?
Was the
Because
last
he left his family's home, or he went to the family home and they were like, they're in prison, and then he left singing, right?
Yeah, I thought so. I was like, oh, this feels familiar. We're ending with the Gavroche has a song.
Yes. No. He is such an interesting character, but I wonder how old he is because they keep calling him little. And
Yeah.
Eponine got out of prison because of her age, and he's younger than her.
I picture him as like 10. Or him.
Yeah.
I picture him as like 10 years old. Gavroche.
My audiobook didn't have singing, but
No,
I would have loved
actually,
it.
mine does.
Oh.
My audiobook narrator, like, kind of sings sometimes, and he'll use, like, French tunes as well. Like, he'll use French patriotic tunes, and he'll sing some of the text. So, it is amusing. It is amusing to me.
That would be so great to hear. I love it when there's poetry though, because I like to listen to the poetry. That like when Marius was giving poetry to Cosette, that was fun to listen to. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think he's like 10 or 12 or 10 to 12, that range. And then his little siblings are like the oldest one they said was 5. So that's quite an age range for the
Mhm.
brothers, but the fact that he was taking care of them and he never knew that they were his own brothers was like sad, but also not surprising
Mhm.
either. But also,
Mhm.
they never knew their own biological parents to begin with
Right.
because they've been adopted out. Yeah, and they were sleeping in the elephant with the rats.
I want a picture of this of, like, the elephant that he lives in. I wanna see it. So I'm like,
Yeah.
how big is it?
Oh goodness, but the rats were so awful, like in
Yeah.
there. Yeah, yeah. So he was probably 4 years younger than Cosette, if that's right. Oh no, not 4 years younger, 7 years younger. So then, if
Uh-huh.
she's 17, 16,
Yeah, I feel like
he
he's
was
around
9.
10 then, yeah, 10, 11.
Yeah. No. Yeah, the elephant was scene was so interesting when the brothers were all talking in there, and I noticed that the book never called them brothers together. It was always Gavroche and then the 2 little brothers. So you really had to figure out for yourself or remember that they were actually all from the same parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rats.
Rats who eat.
Ugh.
Yeah, awful.
A rodent of unusual size.
Mhm. Gross. Oh, I'm glad I didn't listen to that while like in bed or anything, because that would have been nightmare worthy. Just prompting.
Yeah. No, thank you.
I sometimes listen to audiobooks before I go to sleep, and that would have been awful.
There we go. Someone got it. Someone got it.
Yes. Yes. The Princess Bride quote. Oh, yeah. No, the elephant. And I love how at one point the book, at least my audiobook said, Napoleon had amazing plans, but God had better plans to house a child, which I just loved that quote. Because it was like Napoleon has this amazing idea to conquer the world, but this elephant is actually going to house someone who is homeless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't believe they exist.
Yeah. Who is this character? We know. Come on, Hugo. It's kind of obvious, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe it wasn't obvious to his current readers. It may not have been.
Well, yeah, and yes and no, because it was also like, if we remember from Gavroche being clearly stated as their child, literally the section or like the volume before, and then also stated right in that same book that those two were their children, even though it didn't state that they were siblings. So it just is a memory thing, but yeah, he never clearly states it, which is so interesting. It was like, you're not clearly defining that they are brothers in the sense of familial knowledge, but they are relationally like by blood. So it was an interesting idea. But identity is so huge in this book. Like everything about identity is hidden or revealed.
Mm-hmm. There are many characters that go in disguise as well at certain points.
Yeah. Also, did anyone notice that there's a cross-dresser in the book?
Other than Eponine?
No. Well, she switches with a cross-dresser. She switches clothes with someone who likes to dress in women's clothes.
Oh, I must have. I read this really fast, so
I thought that line was just so funny. It was where she switched her outfit with a boy who liked to dress in women's clothes.
Oh, so, I missed that.
At least that's what the line that was in my book, and I was like, that's very interesting in a French classic.
Yeah, I missed that entirely.
So maybe I'm reading into it, but that was funny. In a classic, yeah. Yes, it packs a bigger punch in the book because the movie, I'm always like, yeah, they're recognizable.
Yeah,
Like in a Shakespeare play.
Recognize them.
Yeah, it's like in a Shakespeare play when they put on a different hat and you're like, it's the same person. Yeah, in the book, they're a little more hidden.
And also in the musical, and they're like singing, and it's like, how do you not recognize his singing voice?
Yeah, Kaylee noticed the boy that was switched clothes with her. That happening. Yeah, that was funny. So, yeah, I feel like when you watch something like this, it's a lot easier to notice people, but then when you're reading it, you're just having to imagine. So, the young youth who's joining the barricade, you don't notice it's Eponine because you're not visually seeing it. But she tricks everyone. So obviously in a movie, they'd have to make it visible, but also not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, well. Where do we want to go from here with the topic, with this volume? There was so much to cover, but we covered a lot. Where do we want to go now, Victoria? Or anyone in the comments? Do you have any questions that we want to cover still? And Ebony not singing her song. Yeah, she's not much of a singer. Her voice is too gravelly. Maybe a bit too deep.
I still laugh when we first meet Eponine and he's like, "It sounded like an 80-year-old man," or whatever her voice. I can't remember what he said
Yeah.
exactly.
But it was interesting with my audiobook, she didn't sound like an 80-year-old man as the time progressed.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
maybe time away from her family got her voice a little bit better.
maybe.
Yeah, but he must have had to find several people to
Yeah,
switch clothes with her.
that's an interesting conversation. "Excuse me, sir.
Do you want
Which
my dress?
one?"
Yeah, that would have been very funny. Should we wrap it up here unless anyone else has something we want to talk about?
I don't have anything else that we didn't talk about.
Because we're about to enter into Valjean going to the barricade and Cosette's still at the second apartment. With also Valjean knowing that Marius is the love of Cosette's life and going to die there, apparently. He's dying. Yeah. Yes, Marius does recognize her voice a bit, but he would not have recognized anyone but Cosette. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't recognize that she's in love with him. He's very blind to that fact. I think he's just very naive in love. That one.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, and the mirror, the reveal. That was a great one too. Well, Christy has to catch up because she's a little behind,
It's
but that's
okay.
okay. Well, in 2 weeks, then we'll have our final discussion, and then we will be able to say we finished this big book. That's so
Oh,
exciting.
and I'm gonna I do wanna do a watch along of some kind
Yes,
with everybody, and I'll put up a poll in my Discord if you wanna vote on a day and also an edition to watch. So, um, check the Discord for that. I'm gonna put up a poll soon because I think it would be cool to, um, watch a version together in some way at the end. So
absolutely.
we have 2 more weeks, so I'll try to get that organized and get that up.
Absolutely. We should totally do that. All right. So then we will say goodbye for now and talk in 2 weeks for the final volume.
All right.
Well,
Yay.
thank you for joining us, everyone.
Almost there.
Yeah, we're almost there. We can do this. We can finish it out strong. Bye.
Bye.